All right, everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Noel Pfister with another episode of Showverse, and today I have not one, but two very special guests. I have writer and director Autumn Palen, and I have the producer, Frankie Campisano, of a very interesting short called Breakfast at Berghain, which tells a Cinderella-esque story of a girl locked in her home who dreams to go to Berghain to experience a nightclub. I have with us today Frankie and Autumn. Thank you both so much for stopping by to chat with us about your little movie.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, not a problem, not a problem at all. So I have watched this short of yours, which is currently premiering at DWF, or rather did premiere at DWF. And I just got to say, um, well, I don't really know what to say because it is definitely one of the most unique shorts that I have actually had the pleasure of watching so far. And I mean this with the highest amount of praise possible. It's before we aired, I actually did draw a comparison to someone like Wes Anderson, who has a very distinct style, both visually and sort of thematically. And I would like to draw that comparison, at least to your direction, and a bit of your writing, Autumn. This is one of the most unique films with a very specific style and individual voice that I have seen for quite some time. So I would like to draw praise and consideration on your end.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm
Eh,
very glad that you enjoyed it.
I did, I mean, I did have to watch it like a handful of times because it is a very non-traditional style of storytelling. And first, before we get into the style and tone of the movie, I would actually like to know, at least for you, Autumn, where did the inspiration for this story come from?
Yeah, so this all started. I was teaching abroad in France, and then I went to Berlin for a week with a few friends, and one of my friends was just waxing poetic about Berghain, and me finding out that it never really closes, open that sort of world, and then I imagined a sort of like a Holly Golightly type, like the farm girl turned call girl in the big city, and then kind of seeing that trajectory play out in more of a club kid fashion is what kind of sparked it.
Man, and it does have a very Cinderella-esque kind of feel to it, at least in terms of, lowly girl becoming someone much greater than themselves. And the way you execute the story is really where I think this movie shines. But before we get into that, you did have to work a little bit of double duty on this thing. You were the writer, you were the director, you were also the DP. There's a lot of things that, you probably didn't have enough time to, focus on because you had the main focus on this. Now, to Frankie, how did you come aboard this project? Was it just a matter of, Autumn, did you reach out to him, or or was it a matter of this script that she wrote just kind of happened to come across your presence and you're just like, I need to help make this.
So that was actually pretty close. I had worked with Autumn on another shoot, a friend's short from a couple of years ago, where she was the DP, and we had just got along on set, and we were both comedy fans, and so we got to just talking about different comedy influences, and as you often do when you're connecting with other emerging creatives, we did a script swap. And I sent over these I think you should leave spec sketches just because we had been talking about our shared love of Tim Robinson. And then Autumn sends over Breakfast at Berghain. And I was like, okay, hold on. This script is wildly unique and outrageous, but it also in the Venn diagram of like my tastes and Autumn's taste, it's like perfectly in that overlap. And so I really was like, okay, about 6 months I think passed. I sort of Autumn and said, hey, are you making this? Because if you're not going to make this, I really would love to be the one to make it. Otherwise, I'm just going to be jealous forever because I just love this script and I want to see it come to life. Um, about a year passed until we were able to secure our green light for full funding. That was about this time last year. And then now we've got our world premiere. So in the span of 2 years, it went from just a script that Autumn had kind of not necessarily in a drawer, but on her slate, to a thing that we actually actively wanted to produce, to now a film that has had its world premiere and hopefully kicked off a long run on the festival circuit.
Now, according to the sources that I was able to pull up, the film's actual budget cost just shy of $20,000, which makes sense when you take a look at the amount of extras and some of the production design that went into this. Despite how simplistic in nature it comes across, it still was not, oh, this is just something that someone had in their back rooms. It was clearly designed, and on top of that, it's like I'll get into this later with you, Autumn, but it definitely felt a lot like a stage play, but more brought to screen. So, what was it like securing that funding? And did you film a proof of concept, or was it something that you and Autumn just went around pitching to people, and they're just like, "I want to see this. Here's $50."
So we knew from the beginning that this was going to always have this kind of mixed media aesthetic. Michel Gondry is a huge influence on Autumn style in this particular project, and so we knew we weren't going to Germany, right? We knew we were going to shoot it in LA, and so that became how do we lean into some of these boundaries and make them, just like you were saying, Noah, like how do we lean into these as creative choices and not necessarily limitations, even in some cases where maybe they're a little bit of both, right? And so we had pitched very early on to a financier that I'd worked with on other projects, but he passed. He actually passed on this because we had another project lined up with him to shoot later that same year for a larger sum. And so he's like, Frankie, you're asking me to negotiate against myself here. I'm gonna thank you, but thanks, but no thanks. And I always like to give the financiers that I work with like first right of refusal. If they're interested in any crazy project that we want to pursue, I'm I'm never gonna say no to a collaborator who's gonna help, facilitate that. And so with that in mind, I went back to Autumn, me and my producing partner Steve, and we said, if you give us about a calendar year, we guarantee we can come back with the full budget. But Autumn and I have this in common. We're both pretty ambitious. And so she said, I really don't want to wait a year. I want to get the wheels rolling on this like right now. And so we were like, okay, what can we do to actually make that happen? Um, and so we put together this plan where we were able to shoot our first 7 pages, which for a 14-minute short, it really is about half the movie. We were able to wrap four of our principal leads and that primary house location that the whole first act, will say, takes place in. We shot that whole portion of the movie. So again, roughly half the runtime for about 3 grand in one day. We then took that and we were able to use that to bring in additional funding, including that same financier who had previously passed. Once we showed him, hey, you can watch about half the movie and you're going to be upset when you can't watch the second half. He immediately called me. He was like, how much do you need? How do we make this happen? Um, and so that was again in a series of like Autumn and myself just betting on this project and betting on ourselves. Like we didn't take no for an answer, but we also were thoughtful about how do we execute this. We knew, okay, if we made this what I called our extended teaser, but really is like half of the movie, and if it had to be, it could stand alone as an entire short. If it had to end with Rosie leaving home for the first time, we could have. We didn't want it to. We wanted to do that second half of the movie. But that second half was more ambitious, more actors, more locations, more VFX. And so we needed to secure funding for that. And so I'm really happy that we kind of took that swing and made it happen.
No, and I am too, because it really is with the latter half of the movie that the style really starts to shine. And Autumn, I'm gonna wag my finger at you a little bit because, as I had mentioned previously, and for those of you watching, you keep wondering, what do I mean by like how the style is so unique, or this high school like authenticity? Well, you see, Breakfast at Berghain is shot in a way that is very much, I don't want to say overly thematic, but it's done so in a way where if you've ever watched like a high school either info video or like a high school play, there's this level of stiltedness and like over exemplary when it comes, or rather over oh, man, I can't think of the word, but it's so unique in its presentation, and it's there's this level of deliberation, you know, every element was so deliberate by choice with a level of authenticity that I just couldn't help but appreciate. Now, this is a little different than I think your previous short, which was both Lotto and Would You. So, what I'm wondering was, and rather is this something that you were like from the start? You're like, this is how I want to present my movie, or was it just something that naturally evolved along the way?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, well, yeah, in Eating Lisa was maybe like a testing ground for this style because I baked Paris in a garage in LA. So it's been kind of the front projection and that sort of silly like hiring, there's two twins smoking as the security guards and, you know, cowboy tourists and that sort of thing. So I feel like that's kind of the maybe a spiritual predecessor. This is the spiritual squeakle to that. And I think, yeah, I guess for any given project, kind of going with the style that the story like requests, maybe, going with something that's kind of larger than life, or somewhere between, yeah, Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, that sort of thing, like a yeah, like a journey that's a little maybe laced with MDMA.
It's very much it's fairy tale-esque, and I think the way that it's presented definitely fits within that whole fairy tale style. And yeah, were there any rehearsals, or was it just, or like what was the preparation like for, all of those scenes? Because like I said before, it's executed in a way that is on point and precise. Despite the stiltedness that comes with some levels of the dialogue, everything is deliberate. Everything, it's like composing music. Every note is hitting at the right key. Every moment is hitting the point. It is a dance. So were there any rehearsals, or was it just you rolled the dice and kept hitting snake eyes each and every single time?
No
Thank
rehearsals,
you.
no script even.
I just found these people and I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, it was all just, yeah, this is a documentary. This is all just jazz. Yeah. Yeah, we just happened upon all this place. Yeah, we really only did like one table read all together, and then I think I met with Dominique like once. Aside from that, so it was pretty light. It was kind of jazz. Um, there we are. We're just just a great team.
So one thing I will add though is that both Dominique and Johnny Briseño, who plays Walter, and the judge character, Autumn had attached both of them for a while, and so they had had a lot of time to kind of develop their characters and kind of at least between the two of them and they're really core scene partners for at least the first half of the film. That tone that everything else kind of evolves around, they had time to really kind of develop that.
And I don't know. Pardon me for being a skeptical or even a conspiracy theorist, depending on what we believe here. But I have a very hard time believing that this really just you had one table read and then there was no rehearsals, that these were essentially days of, because everyone is really giving it their all. It's like they knew exactly what they had to do in ways that, you know, I have watched a lot of shorts from DWF recently, and there are even some points where you can tell that some actors are not quite sure what it is they have to do during a scene, but they're just giving it their all, and it leads to a great performance. But here, I keep drawing the Wes Anderson comparisons, and I think that is for the reason of everyone is hitting their mark. Everyone is just knowing what it is they have to do. And so to learn that this didn't have any rehearsals, that everyone just knew, Pardon me for being just a little skeptical, but I will take your word for it for now. And so, no, I'm sorry. This was a truly wonderful experience to just witness. It's so unique, and I just couldn't. Anywho, if I had it my way, I would just continuously say, you're great" for the next Lord knows how long this interview will go. But I did actually want to move over to at least a couple of the more specific elements. So, for example, we brought in production design earlier when we were talking about budget, Frankie. But something that was really unique, a couple elements that kind of stuck out to me. Dominique's nightgown, which looked ancient compared to a lot of the more modern styles of clothing, mainly stemming from, somewhere probably in North Maine from 2008. But you have you have a very old looking nightgown. You have these individually painted backgrounds that you clearly just didn't buy online. And even on top of that, you have some even more outlandish costumes that I will not spoil for those watching. There will be no spoilers here. But what was it like getting a lot of these costumes? And on top of that, what was it like painting these backgrounds? Frank, I'll have you go first.
So I'd say like the costuming and the overall kind of world building of this short is where I think it has some of the most shared DNA with other Nice Hog projects. Costuming, even going as far back as when we were students, costuming was a way that we knew that not only could we take a big swing and have a lot of fun on set, and also to some extent telegraph to our audience tone. It was also a way for, in a very pragmatic sense, every project to have a pretty visually distinct identity. And so here, Autumn might have a different kind of cultural touch point, but for me, it's like a live action Far Side cartoon. Is kind of what we were going for, and being able to kind of lean into this place of Dominique's character Rosie as kind of out of time, like the world that she lives in with her family is this 50s 60s kind of pastiche, and then she's slowly kind of vaulted through time up to a more 21st century kind of contemporaneous setting by the time she gets to the nightclub. And so making that world feel cohesive even as it kind of revealed itself was important, and then also making it like, producible. Again, shot in LA, uh, a relative shoestring budget. We still wanted it to feel like this film had the scope and scale of what we were promising.
Which it more than does. But at the same time, the similar question goes to you, Autumn. Except let me tweak it just a little bit. So you clearly had a script ready almost years in advance before shooting. And so what I'm wondering was, and rather is, what levels of prep did you personally have to put in when it came to, picking out what Dominique's character Rosie wore, or how you wanted the backgrounds to look. Describe to me your preparation when it came to making Breakfast at Berghain.
Yeah, absolutely. I did find the gown online. I which was I think it was some sort of insane steal, like maybe I don't know. I feel like it was like $30 or something, which is insane. It feels like it could have been like made for this, but it was like a perfect, online happenstance. I think I didn't even get. I was like, well, I'm gonna get this one, and if that doesn't work, cry. No, or return it, try again. But this was like first pass. Um, and with the others, yeah, partially my like combination between like a graduation gown for the airport meister or people bringing their own clothes, and maybe I give like accessories or gloves. So yeah, going for yeah, like kind of in a Leave It to Beaver sort of thing for that sort of cultural touchstone as well in the family. Um, and I and oh, and then for the backgrounds, those are also uh yeah, finding those, curating them, creating different options, and we have different takes maybe in certain points of like the airport, inside and outside, that are slightly different variations. Yeah, also having that sort of, we just had a projector kind of above everyone's heads, that we could still light them, without having too much of a, you know, and not washing out the background too much. So it was kind of a balance that also kind of leaned somewhere between production design and camera, um, Genie. So that was kind of, the mishmash of all those different things. But yeah, trying to keep within that, like the extension of that world behind them, still feeling kind of lit the same and in the same texture. Um, and yeah, that was kind of the balance or the dance. I mean, and then I made like a, spreadsheet of the shot list and all the different, like, what could the backgrounds be. So it was all very, left and right brain, maybe, being raised by a software engineer. So the spreadsheet is gospel.
Oh, please don't even get me started, you know. Anytime I've had to work on a project, it's like you're like, "Oh, maybe I can just like tell my camera guys what I want." And you're like, "My communication skills are not the best. Maybe I should just have this on a spreadsheet just in case, you know." But sticking with you, Autumn, because you're not only the writer and director of this project, you are also the DP. And as much as I've given praise to the writing and direction that you have given, I also actually do kind of want to dive a little bit into the director of photography aspects of it all because this is presented in 4 by 3, but on top of that, the focal length and the depth of field for this project is very much it's not shallow. You actually do get like a good bit of depth from, front to back. So what camera did you use? What lenses did you use? And on top of that, why was that the choice to use those specific cameras and lenses for this project?
Absolutely. We were on a Blackmagic 6K. I mean, I think it's very handy. It has the, internal NDs. It's also very light and portable, so you could kind of move it around fast, get the setups done quickly. I think as being at least, two department heads on the day, being like really, I guess both the creative, I think being able to be efficient also speaks to, giving more time. It allows you more time to be creative, to be like ready to go quickly, so that way you can do more takes if you want to, or try different things and not feel like, okay, we've set up, we've got everything that took 3 hours, you have one take. So that, I think that was part of it, is keeping it light and efficient. We worked with Sigma zoom lenses, which also kind of helped. Oh, no crash zooms though. We could have done that. There was a, yeah, I think there was an 18 to 55, and then we had a 14 mil lens, which was great for the close up on the wide angle. Kind of allows for like the father in his outrageous, eyebrows, the orange biting, everything kind of to speak for itself in very small motions, I think. So that was the lenses, the camera, and yeah, mainly aperture lights. We did that when she's dancing around in the living room. That was a practical light gag. And there are actually three of her, like sinners. No, but there, but no, we did dim everything around her and then have a spotlight going. So yeah, everything, I trying to keep it also like with projection as opposed to a green screen. Keeping it practical on the day was, I think, important. And that's another thing, as Frankie mentioned, with like Michel Gondry, like the Science of Sleep uses front projection in the dream world. So keeping it kind of a dream, especially because a lot of that projection was in the middle journey, and the starting point and the destination are, practical. So yeah, that was the process.
And you brought up Michel Gondry. Actually, that's like I think the third time that you've brought him up. So I'm guessing, I'm guessing elements of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is a sort of influence, or was it just him as a creative in general was a massive influence over your work?
Yeah, mainly the Green Hornet. Yeah, it's the main. No, yeah.
Well, it was fun having you guys on here, but now
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. I feel like I'm gonna drink a
Goodbye.
fifth of scotch and cry myself to sleep.
Yeah.
Because this is such a beautiful movie. I never thought the Green Hornet was where you drew your inspiration from. So I'm gonna go drink. Catch y'all later.
Yeah,
No,
yep.
no, no.
Our first choice for Rosie was Seth Rogen. Yeah, no. um, you can put that on record now. Um, yeah, but no, absolutely. I mean, Eternal Sunshine is definitely of such a a one chamber of my heart, I think. And yeah, The Science of Sleep as well is yeah the Gael and Charlotte Gainsbourg and everything. And even the music videos too, like kind of I feel like parts of like Everlong has that sort of drifting between dreams sort of thing, or yeah, so the way that he handles the unconscious world, I think is what kind of was the main draw visually and spiritually. And yeah, no, I think that sort of like conspicuous DIY in a way too, like uh especially again the Science of Sleep, like that. Especially there's that sequence where they're both like in it's more like uh uh there's like espionage but with like a cardboard Fisher Price car, and they're all like someone turns someone around and their face has like a cardboard face on it, like it's kind of the silly, like if a 4-year-old was given $500,000 or something, like that sort of aesthetic was maybe what I that's the target.
I mean, there's also a character named Mr. Airport who looks like a mime, who tears up a ticket and goes. So, it's a level of immersion that really you can have a cardboard car that's worth $4 million for some reason, but it's a level of does it work for the story? And I believe it does. It's a very immersive movie. And I did talk with you just now about multiple roles on this project. Now, Frankie, you actually did have multiple roles on this project as well, other than producer. You actually play, well, one of the airport guards, technically speaking. I know it's not a big role, but it's still one of the funniest scenes in the movie. So, as someone who was actually personally directed by Autumn, tell me, what was it like working with her as a director? Describe to me her process from your perspective.
So I think Autumn is a fantastic director. I can't imagine this project helmed by anyone else. But uh, for I'm not an actor, I'll say that. And so through no part of Autumn's directing, the experience of acting in this film was nothing short of humiliating. I shaved my beard. I had a mustache, and well, okay, it was a little bit less humiliating by the time I got on set because I had a couple of days to grow back in some stubble around the mustache. Those first couple of days post beard, truly some of the toughest days of my life. But not only was I did I have to be uh, acting in scene with my producing partner as my scene partner, and Dominique was in the scene with us. I had to eat a ham sandwich, which I believe we cut from the final film. But I struggled because I'm not a particularly fond person of ham with regards to ham sandwiches, and so the I'm not acting in those scenes. I am genuinely struggling to eat that food. And I think not only was that performance why that scene got truncated, it actually had a domino effect where we cut an entire different scene on a different location with an entire other actor who's only in that scene, um, whose work landed on the cutting room floor. I believe because of my inability to convincingly eat a ham sandwich on screen.
And
Yeah.
for those of you who are currently watching I will not be able to show it, but Autumn, during Frankie's entire, I guess, confession, was laughing maniacally at the fact that he couldn't eat a ham sandwich. And the level of evil that is prevalent is made me fear for my life. So if I don't upload anymore, just know it's because of Autumn specifically. Uh, but no,
Yes.
that's genuinely good praise. And by the way, yes, sometimes it is hard to act. I've had to do the same thing. It's very awkward because it's like this is not what I'm supposed to do, but it does seem like you were in relatively good hands in form of Autumn's direction. Autumn, props to you there as
Mhm.
well. I do think that this seems to be like the second movie you've made in this similar style. Um, and we'll get into a little bit of that in a bit, but I really do hope you continue with this style because it is immersive as it is engaging. But this is only the second project you actually have gone about using this sort of, oh man, I don't even know what kind of style it is. Because if I said, oh, it's like a high school play, that just seems very demeaning. And I don't want to come across that way. But this next question goes for the both of you. And Autumn, I'll have you go first. How does this compare to some of your previous works, which I think we have The Little Death, Lotto, and Would You? And Frankie, I will ask you the same thing and bring up some of your own projects. But for now, Autumn, how does this compare? And whether that be in terms of the experience making it, the workload, or the overall feeling of accomplishment. Just answer it however you see fit.
That's a fun question. Yeah. I think it's a with things like Lotto, I think I directed but didn't write or DP. So I think that's one that sets that apart. It was fun to come in, but then it felt like, I didn't have the same maybe weird flavor in certain ways. But it was a great time with a great team. The Little Death, well, yeah, with things like The Little Death or Would You or Eating Lisa, those are kind of all I usually encapsulate them by like women on ridiculous missions or, kind of yeah, this sort of inciting incident, the question within it being like, what? Yeah, that's kind of the my main goal. Um what if a hornet were green? No, sorry. um I'm gonna say that four more times. Um but I think I think those are all there's and Stain as well. There are these kind of core tenets of like um there's something I guess slightly autobiographical in each of them. And it's like a little each chunk. It's all the what is it, the Thanos rings. It's
Oh, the
but with
Thanos rings.
yeah.
Excuse me. He wears a gauntlet with
Oh,
stones or gems, depending on if
sorry.
you
I've
actually want to get into
only
that.
watched
But
The Green
still,
Hornet. I've the only movie I've ever watched.
oh, I
um,
thought Green Hornet was the only movie you ever watched.
exactly. No, that's sorry. The only movie I've ever watched is Green Hornet, so that's why I didn't know about Thanos' jewelry. I'm sorry. Sorry to this man. Um, but yeah, it's like the Chaos Emeralds for why I should be in therapy is essentially each chunk of each of these short films. Um,
I'm sorry. I gotta stop you right there. You went from calling them Thanos rings, which is
yeah,
Marvel, and
yes.
now and yet the one thing you did get right is Sonic lore, which is the Chaos Emeralds. Don't ask me why I know that, I just do. And
Yeah.
so the flip-floppy here, I don't know. I'm starting to get, are you AI? Are you AI? Show me your hands. Let me see if there's six fingers there.
Yeah, let's see
No.
how many thumbs. Oh, actually, that is funny. The green screen cuts it off. Oh my God. I'm not
Oh,
eating the allegations. I'm not. But yeah, I was gonna be like, that's Jim Carrey's best movie. No, going on record with the worst takes in the world. I think, but no, I think it is all of them. I was gonna bring in a third franchise. the folks playing at home can do that.
You already brought
But
in
it's
three. You
all
brought in Marvel, you brought in Sonic, and technically Green Hornet is a franchise. It was a show in the 60s.
there
So,
we go.
you,
Let's see how many more I can reference.
uh,
But that's all. Point being, as evidenced by this answer, I do need to maybe be locked up. Um, Grippy socks. Yeah, and but these are all the visual remnants, the pieces of my soul that are indicators.
all right. No, but I'm guessing this project you had a lot more control over in terms of a wider scale. So was that easier or was it harder? Like, how does this project fare? I mean, you do bring a lot of inspiration from a lot of your previous projects, and it seems that this was a sort of culmination of all that work. But would you say it was easier, harder, more fun, more challenging? Eh,
Yeah, that's a great question. I think going from I with eating Lisa, sometimes I think I was the only person behind the camera a lot of the time. And if one is to watch the last scene, you could tell that I don't do production sound. Um, very, oh boy, is that staticky. So it's I think between that being kind of one of the first ones, all the way to with Would You, that was kind of fuller crew as well, and everything was that was kind of more of definitely a surreal concept, but a all one kind of a home and a park, um, real locations, and into kind of Berghain being a mix of both of like a larger scale crew, but um, fake places. I think it's definitely been a nice culmination of learning how to delegate, even if I'm still wearing a couple hats. It's and a mesh shirt. I think it's definitely been a nice lesson to know the strengths that other people can pull in, and not just being uh, uh almost required by no one but myself, honestly, to to be like I have to do everything, the whole shebang, you know.
no, I totally get it. Sometimes it's very difficult to, delegate or ask someone else to do some work because you want to make sure it's done right, and if you want a job done right you got to do it yourself. But once you start wearing a lot of hats, your neck starts feeling a little heavy, and you start wearing too many hats. That's it's not really a good look overall. But I appreciate your answer honestly, because there are a lot of times where our ego sort of steps in, and we're like, I did this, this, and this, and it was perfectly fine. But it takes someone with a little bit of brass to go, yeah, look, I did a lot of things and I couldn't really do them all, so I had to ask for some help. I do think that's very healthy and signs of a strong filmmaker. But now on to Frankie here. You have produced quite a few projects as well, such as Training Wheels, Bachelor's Degree, Secret, Secret Menu, Secret Menu Beauty Pageant. Oof,
Right.
that got me there for a second. And Ice Cream Social, and now you have um, you have Breakfast at Berghain under your belt. Sorry about that, couldn't speak. You have Breakfast at Berghain under your belt as well. How does this specific project differ from your previous ones, at least from a producing standpoint?
Truly the four wildest pulls you could have grabbed from my filmography. Um, I would say Breakfast at Berghain, in terms of making sure that Autumn could wear all these hats, the first thing I'd want to add is we wanted to set her up for success. I understand that when folks, other emerging filmmakers out there hear that she wrote, directed, shot, and co-edited this film, that's a lot for one person to take on. And then you watch the film and you go, okay, but there's such a coherence of vision. Like Autumn set out to make this. the movie that Autumn made is exactly the movie that I saw in my head when I first read the script, and I'm sure it's pretty close to the version that she first initially envisioned. And the only reason we were able to really pull all that off, because it is at times a tightrope act, was making sure that we kind of had these point people. And so on set, as producer, I was also script supervisor. And so I said, Autumn, I'm only going to be responsible for Autumn the writer. That is who I'm going to have, loyalty to. My other producing partner was our first AD, and so he was going to be loyal to Autumn the director. And then one of our close collaborators was our first AC. He has also worked with us on other Nice Hog projects, and so he was going to be responsible to Autumn, the cinematographer. And so, no matter which one of those roles, whichever hat she was wearing, there was a dedicated person who was like, "Hey, I'm here to be your lieutenant on this specific role, so that you can wear all these hats and never kind of worry about dropping a ball." And I think that model where we were placing a lot of faith in Autumn, but also setting up a system where it it wasn't all of this pressure on her, even though she had to do all these different things. I think made it a fun and as stress-free time on set as any of us could have hoped for. But as far as Breakfast at Berghain comparing to other projects in the Nice Hog slate, I would say uh, going back as far as like Dad, which is a undergraduate thesis short that I produced like 10 years ago, 11 years ago. That has a lot of shared DNA as far as it's this kind of funhouse mirror take on a traditional family structure. There's kind of this down the rabbit hole element of it. Um, Secret Menu definitely looms large over this project in terms of it's got a very mixed media aesthetic. There's a lot of kind of DIY punk rock sensibility, and that in the aggregate, as these projects are placed into a context with each other, something that might scan to a less discerning viewer in Berghain or in Secret Menu as a limitation suddenly becomes a deliberate creative choice. We can and have made movies that don't have projection or miniatures or puppetry, um, and it's more fun to do the ones that have that stuff. And so being able to kind of demonstrate, hey, we can do this and we can do things that are maybe a little bit more coloring inside the lines, I think makes people that much more willing to go with us when we do these big swings.
And a big swing this really was. I mean, you were using puppets and you were using miniatures. And I've already taken up a lot of your guys' time, and if we start getting to the intricacies that involve puppets and miniatures, we're going to be here for nearly 3 hours, and that's going to become a whole thing within itself. But I do want to draw praise, at least while I have the time, to the craftsmen behind the miniatures and the puppetry as they helped sell the immersion of the, $4 million cardboard car that Autumn has since brought up, at least in terms of level of emotion here. And also, you also went and did the Napoleon Dynamite style of crediting because you actually credit all of the extras in the starring section, all the people in the background who, during the nightclub sequence, you actually credit all of them. And I think that is really, really wonderful. And I'd like to once again draw praise to that because usually you wait until you get to the scrolling part of the credits to actually list off every single individual person. And instead, you're like, nah, you guys were with us, through the rest of the way here, so we'll throw your credit. So I'd like to draw praise and give thanks because once again, shows signs of character. And I appreciate that wholeheartedly. Now, as we mentioned before, this did premiere at DWF. Care to share your reactions to, getting it in and to have people see it? Autumn, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt I mean really honored that this was the 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 stage for us to really make our first splash. I'd had friends get in prior, with other both LA and New York, and it just already from the outside seemed like a great culture and a great community. And on the inside of that, I can confirm that it's very um, communal, yeah, very communicative, very nice, warm, supportive. and a great way to kind of meet other filmmakers. So I think having gone to other festivals that are, you know, great in their own rights, but not really having much of that same aspect that makes dances shine. I think what really that crowning jewel on top for dances is the fact that it's a connector, and you can not just for any sort of like, you know, what can I get out of you, what can you get out of me. It's just kind of like what can we what can we connect on and see together, what can we go, you know, chat about together. I did get coffee with one of the other filmmakers. I'm on, you know, the East Coast right now, and I went into the city, and you know, we managed to chat because we're both in the same block. So and that's Jesse from Physical Touch. So very fun. I don't know. It carries on after, which is important, I think.
And that's really wonderful to hear, especially making networking connections. Networking connections. Oh, it is almost 8:30. I sorry, but no, it's wonderful to know that you got to mingle with other filmmakers, and it really wasn't just a matter of, hey, this is the next project of mine. Hey, this is the next project of mine. This is like yeah, your project was great. Let's go sit and talk about it. It's always good to meet your fellow collaborators and your peers. Frankie, same question goes for you. What was the feeling you got to actually see the film you produced and worked on premiere at Dances with Films?
So it was honestly a real honor and privilege. I had first gotten involved with the festival last year as a volunteer. I had submitted projects previously that they'd never gotten in, but I didn't really have any sense of dances as different from any other festival. And I think that's a lot of folks kind of you don't know until you know, right? And so as a volunteer, I realized, oh, they're really building a genuine community within the larger indie film community here in LA. And this is something I want to be a part of. And so I was actually volunteering at dances last year when I got the call from Jordan Sarf, our executive producer, that Breakfast at Berghain was greenlit and we were going to be able to make it. And so I'd always kind of had a world premiere at dances as kind of like a target. Um, and so we were able to submit to the Midnights category, and the Midnights programmer, Benny Waddell, is a friend and mentor of mine, and I know Benny's tastes very well. And this is different than a typical Midnight short as far as what Benny's mostly interested in. So when I found out that he was going to program the short, I was super excited for Autumn, super excited for the team. But honestly, no, I was sweating bullets because I was like, damn, is this audience, a Friday at midnight audience? Are they going to be literally demanding blood? Because this movie has no blood, it has no guts, it has no gore. And that kind of like pulpy sensibility is often the highlight of the Midnight's programming at dances. And so for months, I was agonizing over this. I didn't know anything about the shorts that we were going to be playing with. I just knew that at least a good amount of them had one foot in the horror world, and we had zero. And so to actually sit in the theater that night, and we had a pretty prime spot in terms of sequencing. I'm a nerd about this kind of stuff. And so the first and foremost, the block itself, Benny knows what he's doing. He's a pro. It was very much a comedy horror block with a couple of moments of just straight up palate cleanser shorts, including ours. And so by the time that we played, about halfway through the block, this midnight audience was activated. They were excited, they were engaged, and they understood that they can and should be laughing at these projects. So when our just straight up absurd comedy plays about halfway through the block, it was one of the most receptive theatrical audiences I've had the pleasure of being a part of, whether that's as a filmmaker or just as an audience member. Truly, one of my favorite experiences in a theater ever. And that was true for every single Midnight Shorts block.
That's wonderful to hear. I mean, also, I'll admit I can understand why you were sweating bullets. It's not every day your very whimsical Cinderella-esque comedy is premiered a bunch in front of a bunch of horror style shorts. But it seems that the audiences were very receptive to it, and it seems that you had people on your side who were like knowing exactly when to premiere it. And once again, I just like to say congratulations to the both of you. It's already difficult enough getting a film made, but to actually get it into a film festival of this caliber, it's not an easy feat. So props to you both. And I'm also realizing how long we have been talking as of right now. So I would like to at least end this on a rather greedy note. You see, the nature of being an artist and the nature of being a filmmaker is really what comes next. Once you make something, people consume it, and then they're like, "All right, what's next? More. Gimme, 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 gimme." So, Autumn, what is the next project that we can look out for that is at least on your plate currently?
Absolutely. Well, as uh, there was mentioned, Stain is one that I did shoot not long after Berghain in November. And I wore one less hat. Well, no, two less hats. I was wrote and directed. My friend Sarah Winters DP'd it. And I, as a contrast to Berghain, wrote it in one sitting at Alma's wine bar. And it was a while, but still is without a doubt, you watch it and you're like, no, this is why she should pop on those grippy socks. And that'll be hopefully making the festival rounds soon. Exactly. And clawing at the walls of my enclosure, LLC. But I am that's the most recent completed one. And aside from that, there's a few other things in post and hoping to, write a kind of pitch black comedy feature that, anyone with any bags of money, welcome to slide in my DMs.
Oh, of course, obviously. I am a little disappointed though. I thought you would have made another Green Hornet movie, but
I
it's
was
neither.
gonna, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
All right, and not the
Michelle is
last
not
Green
answering
Hornet
my
joke, I
phone.
swear.
Yeah.
Um, and Frankie, same goes for you. Any projects we should be keeping our, eyes and ears and mouth and nose, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, out for?
Yes. So we're actually kind of at the culmination of what I would say is like one era for Nice Hog, where we have had a bunch of stuff shot and in post from like 2024 to now. That's all kind of now hitting the festival circuit at the same time. So in addition to Breakfast at Berghain, we have a horror short called My Name is John that a lot of the same team worked on. Um, that is about to have its world premiere, hopefully announced in the near future. We have a handful of other shorts, all of which I'm involved in as a producer, if not as a co-writer and an editor as well, that will be making their festival runs. Um, all kind of targeting a little bit. We try not to repeat ourselves, but there is a through line. If you like Breakfast at Berghain, if you like Secret Menu, you're going to find something to like in these other projects. I'm certain of that. And then as far as new things entering production, we just recently boarded a fantasy short by our friends at Uncanny Productions called The Duel that is shot and in post already. So I'm just super excited about that. I think like sword and sorcery is not something you see from a lot of emerging filmmakers, and this is like the team to do it for sure. And then we have an animated comedy short called Pirate Eye that is probably still about a year out from its own festival run. Animation takes a long time, but that's one that I think we're all pretty excited about, and hopefully again, we'll just demonstrate how do we show you more how do we show people more of what they love without repeating ourselves and then also taking kind of a bigger swing each time. So really excited just to get more of these projects out the door.
When I look forward to seeing them if and when I get the chance to. And for those of you watching, by the way, information in regards to Breakfast at Berghain will be in the link in the description below, as well as links to Nice Hog, as well as the IMDb's for both Autumn and Frankie. And if we ever see a wider release for Breakfast at Berghain, that will be in the link in the description below because I will put my money where my mouth is, and I do believe this is something that should be watched by everybody. Yes, it might not be your style of tea, it might not be your flavor of ice cream, but at the same time, this is a creative risk that I believe paid off very, very well. And it's always good to step outside your comfort zone, even if for a moment, to try something new. And this is certainly something new. And with that, uh, our time on Showverse has come to an end. Once again, Autumn Palen, Frankie Campisano, I would like to thank both of you for coming on the show with me today and taking time to just discuss not only Breakfast at Berghain, but also just the backgrounds that you both come from, as well as the insights to your filmmaking capabilities and your overall feelings just about film in general. Thank you so much to the both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for your kind words.
Not a problem at all. And with that, take care, and I'll see you all on the next one.